Let's take a look at what the debugger is. This is going to be a very valuable tool that you can use when your program gets pretty complicated and you can't figure out what is happening. So we have something that's pretty straightforward here, but this part might be confusing, right? You might be looking through this and like, I don't really understand what's happening here, or it's not working as you would expect. And so what we can do is we can come over here to this gutter and we can add a breakpoint. So if you just hover over here, we can click a breakpoint. And so this is identifying to the VS Code that you want to stop the program right here and go just kind of line by line to see it in action. So in order to do the debugger, you can come over here and then you can run the debugger like this. You can also click on this and run the debugger over here. So I'm going to say Python debugger, debug Python file. So I'm going to run that. And then on this side, we're seeing kind of this output. So this is where all the information that we care about is happening. On this side of the screen, I've got the terminal that's kind of taking over my whole screen. Right now, the program is waiting. I haven't reached the part where I'm going to be debugging right here, right? I'm all the way up here in this part right here. So the program is waiting for me to enter in a number. So I'm going to enter in kind of a big number so we can see this in action. So let's enter in the number 21. Then when I press enter, we'll notice that down here, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. We don't really need that anymore. I'm stopped at this for loop right here. This is the breakpoint. On the left, I can see, let's make that a little bit bigger. I can see these values that I have here. Notice that user number is set to 21. If I hover over user number in the program, I can also see that, and it's telling me right here what user number is, right? If I hover over number is prime, right now number is prime is set to 2. So these are my variables that I'm currently working with. Up here is where the program, if I hit continue, it's just going to continue on with the program. It'll run through this and then end. What I want to do is these two things right here. They'll come in handy more when we start talking about functions. But right now I can do a step over or step into. Step over is going to kind of skip through things. Step into, I'm going to go kind of line by line. And so I'm going to hit this step into. And so when I click this, we skip these lines because they're comments, and now I'm right here. And so we can see several things. Divisor is now set to equal 2. That was set up here. So the value for divisor was set here. When I run the program, it hasn't run this line of code yet. That's why I didn't have divisor up here. Now I've run this line of code and divisor is set to equal to 2. So here I'm showing that user number is 21 and I'm dividing it. I'm doing the modulus for divisor, okay? And I'm determining whether or not this statement right here is true. Okay, so if I click this button, step into right here, we can see that that decided that it did not divide by 2, and so it skipped that. Notice that number is prime is still set to a true, okay? And then I'm going to step into it again. This time the divisor is 3, so we're seeing whether or not 3 can go into 21. So this is the if statement that I'm evaluating. And I'm determining whether or not there is, if this is a true statement or a false statement, right? So 21 divided by 3. Notice now that that ended up being true. So there is a 21 will go into 3 with no remainder. And so now I've changed my divisor, I've changed my number is prime right here to true. And now we know that this is not a prime number. And I can step into and I'm going to come back up here. It's going to continue to run in here, right? Because I have set it to go all the way into user number. There may be a circumstance as soon as I figure out it's not a prime, maybe I want to get out of the calculator. If I only care if it's a prime, I know it's not a prime now. And so I can put some logic in here to exit the program, right? Now you can see that this is going to go long. So if I were to put a very, very large number, the computer would keep going even though it already knows that we don't have a prime. And so this is a good way to utilize the debugger. I can hit this stop button to get out of the debugger, and then I'm ready to go right there. So debugger is a very handy tool, especially if you're trying to figure out, why your code is doing what it's trying to do.